What's up, Lucky Gamers? It's Lucky Lux, and today I'm bringing you guys another guide on Blue Archive, and we're going to be talking about the supports in the game. I know it's been a minute since I've done a role video, but hey, we're going to go ahead and get this done. So the supports, they're the ones who are giving you various buffs, giving you increased damage, giving you lowering the stats of other enemies, debuffing, and they have their uses everywhere. Now that I've played PvE and PvP, I can definitely give a very somewhat in-depth, description of them. So we're going to go ahead and sort these guys out, and some of these supports, and I'm not talking about the special units, I'm talking about the ones who literally are the support role here. So all important, all have a role, some of them more important than others, but we'll go ahead and go into Kayako. She's my top one right now. So Kayako, now this is gonna be a little biased. Kayako is great in certain situations, right? She has AoE, she has single target, she has crowd control, and that's what makes her strong, right? So if you go over here and look at her EX skill, it does a circular area of damage where it fears for 4 seconds. Now in PvE, that is really nice because especially if you're crowded, it can hit all the enemies, especially if you're doing like the what is that, the commission where you have if you're trying to get your AX skills, you have all those enemies running at you. This is really great. In PvP, I mean, you have depending on where the AI puts it, it's really great. So that's why it's not as great for PvP, because sometimes it just puts it straight on the Tsubaki and all the enemies in the back don't get hit by it. But depending on the type of warfare that we have in the PvP changes, some of the units might be different. We might not have as many snipers. I mean, this can pretty much half health most enemies if you have it leveled up in PvP. The only problem is that it costs a lot. It costs a lot for that. And so that's where Kayako in the lower ends, the mid tier, was amazing. But when I'm, going through and trying to get to those top ranks, I could not use it. I needed those skills around the 3 and 4 range, maybe 5, depending on the situation. But yeah, her basic skill is again gonna have a fear on it as well. Just 146% of attack is damage to one enemy every 20 seconds, 30% chance to inflict fear. But again, that's almost a 4 second, it's a 3.5 second fear. There's a 30% chance to do it. Jesus. So again, really strong, something that she's, doing quite often. This is pretty much the only ability that is great in PvP if it works out right. But again, more so a PvE thing. The fear is a great and amazing concept, but we have to get away from the Tsubakis, because just think about the fact that Tsubaki can dodge this and you already only have a 30% chance to inflict the fear. So it's just very annoying, honestly. Enhanced increases her crowd control strength by 14%, so it increases the chance of her, doing the fear and the power of that fear. So really good to have. I wouldn't prioritize leveling this, honestly. It's just something just there. But her sub skill now, that's a 78% chance for me on level 2 of doing additional damage to enemies inflicted with crowd control. So whenever she does this ability, she's doing an extra 78% damage to those units, which is really nice. Especially if you have other crowd control units, that also helps, like if you have a stun. So again, decent unit for PvE. For PvP right now, not so much, especially the way the AI works. The fear can half hit, but by that time they get healed up before you can really do anything. So Hifumi, great unit for PvE. Her EX skill, the fact that it can taunt, is amazing. It just costs a lot, but it summons a Peroro plush with 160% of her HP that deals 202% of attack. But the main thing is that, and this is a circular area, but the main thing is that it does a taunt for 3.4 seconds. So it can pull that, attention off of your tank real quick for you to drop a heal. So for PvE, it's really great, especially in those AoE encounters. You throw it out, it taunts all those enemies that end up trying to shoot it. It's really hard for them to kill. In PvP, I mean, right now she's not in a warfare that she's not in the right type of warfare for her to work. So like, no one's really using her. I haven't seen anybody using her, and especially with being auto, depending on where like the tank and the DPS are. Like, it's not gonna do that much on AoE, so not really ranked that high for PvP. But for PvE, yes, amazing the way that this works, because you can just throw it, do a bunch of damage to the enemies, and it taunts them and gives you a little bit of breathing room. Her basic skill deals 212% of attack damage to enemies every 35 seconds, but it decreases the accuracy. This works really well, especially if you're just wanting some of your teammates to survive. Especially if you pair this with like you yourself having a Tsubaki tank. This gives her a chance, if you're hitting an enemy, for her to dodge even more, because you're just lowering their chance to hit. So this is very helpful, especially if you're pairing it with a Tsubaki. So just think about that, especially when the type warfare changes for PvP. That'll be useful. Or if you're grinding up your levels in your missions, you could pair her and Tsubaki together, and that'll be very helpful for your tank. Enhanced skill, it's going to increase her HP, which is going to help out with getting your Heroic Plush more HP, and just kind of help her survive a little bit more. So not too much of a priority, because her health's already low, being a support, but you know, it's there, it's helpful. Now her sub skill increases cost recovery by 980 when using EX skills. Really nice, because that helps get those abilities back. So you do want to use her ability, even though it's a 5. She's one of the only characters I know that really helps with getting the cost recovery up. So maybe here in the future we'll see that more, but she's the only one that I know of by my knowledge. Let's see, Acne I've been using in my raids. She's really nice because she's one of the only units that does a nice DPS buff, and it's very cheap. So if you look at her EX skill, deals 547% of attack as damage to one enemy and decreases defense by 29%. So I have been using this in the yellow raids. It's amazing. It costs 2 and it's a defense break. 30%. That's 30% more damage that your team can do. And it's a single target, so she's doing a decent amount of damage to the boss. So for PvE, yes. Now, again, when the type warfare changes and Tsubaki's hopefully not used as much and we see Hoshino tanks, this right here will annihilate Hoshino tanks. Or if you're in PvP and you see somebody using a Hoshino tank, then throw on Acne, because she can pretty much deal with that. Hit that with a piercing on the head. Man, come on. Like, so Acne, people sleep on her, which is okay, I understand. You're just like, eh. But no, she does decent damage and she can take care of those enemies that, you know, are heavy armor and decrease them. So very useful. Her basic skill does like what, almost 400% of attack to one enemy. So she's a good single target unit. I do suggest having her and building her. Again, mostly if you're raiding, this EX skill here is really nice. I wouldn't sleep on it. Enhanced skill increases her movement speed. So this is when like she's like moving out of an attack, or when she's just traversing the field, she just increases her movement. I haven't seen where it's too crazy. I mean, speed racing on the map, I don't see how that's super useful versus just having extra damage. But maybe it's something I'm missing. But I haven't seen this just be like awesome, honestly. And whenever I get this sub skill, or if you already have it, has a 10% chance to decrease the enemy's evasion for 6.7 seconds when attacking. This is okay. Like, I guess PvP, like it could help fight against those Tsubaki tanks or Suka tanks, but like and it's a 10% chance to do it, and it's only 6.7% at level 1. So like, priority of leveling this up, not too sure about it, and it has a cooldown, and I'm not sure if it's stackable, so that's the only problem. But if it is stackable, then it's amazing. But it also depends on your luck, because it's a 10% chance, and if that goes up. So for PvP, she's situational, depending on what they have. If they have a Hoshino, yes. If they have a Tsubaki, no. not really, because Tsubaki has no defense. So, PvE for raids, yes. Hare for PvE, The stun, like it's AoE, it does AoE damage, it's AoE stun. It's like it will help. It will help in the what is that? The bounty or the commissions where it's like the Power Rangers you have to fight and you need to stun them, stop them from running away. Yes, very useful. Literally anywhere else in PvE, I don't see it being amazingly strong, but in PvP, yes. I talked about her in my PvP guide. That AoE stun can save your life since it's already auto RNG. Whenever she pops it off, she's stunning the tank and anyone else around. So especially when people are running those double tank formations, like it helps out. It really does. It really does. So priority of leveling her, like but if like you're just needing a mix trying to get higher up, like if you're in those high hundreds or thousands, use her because she can stop some of those people's teams. I'm telling you, it's really good. It's really good for, again, earlier PvP. She will help carry you. Her basic skill decreases recovery boost by 26% for one enemy. So this is where you can stop that Tsubaki from healing on you, or that Hoshino, or if you're having trouble against someone's Irie. Honestly, this is a counter to Irie because like she can't heal as much. So again, for early PvP in those higher levels that you guys are in, like, yes, use it. Use her. Use her. Enhanced skill increases crit. So she can crit with the amounts of damage that she's doing. Her sub skill increases ally evasion. Who do you pair that with? Tsubaki, Suka. This helps out. It really does. And then I was just earlier talking about who was that? Hifumi, I think it was, who lowers the enemy's accuracy. So again, another synergy you can pair with. You can lower their accuracy and then you can buff your evasion. Just some things to think about. So yes, Hari and Tsubaki, you can use those, you can use those together, and then you have an AoE stun. It really helps out, I promise. Kotama, okay, so a lot of people are ranking her really high, and I'm guessing that I just don't know how to use her properly, or I just don't see it. But she is great as a support because she increases the allies' attack by 24% in a circle, so you can buff everybody and do more damage. But in PvE, I see this as being amazing because you can actually control what you're doing. You can drop that on all your team before you do a DPS phase, especially when the raid boss changes to a different typing. This will be amazing, right? Or maybe people are using it right now. I just see that instead of doing that, I'd rather just have all DPSs, because right now she's not doing that much to the boss as well. So I'm just like, But in like PvP, the problem is that you can't control where it goes, so it's most likely just gonna drop randomly, and the 24% buff is gonna be amazing to one unit, but you don't know what unit it's gonna be. So, and if you're depending on your units, like depending on the spacing that they have, no one's gonna get it. So for PvP, I would say no, but for PvE, yes. Basic skill. This is gonna deal 237% of attack as damage to one enemy every 30 seconds, decrease attack. Again, for PvE, yes, you can lower the attack of the boss. For PvP, it's probably gonna hit the tank or some random enemy, and it's not gonna hit the one that you want. So you're gonna decrease their attack by like 19%, but then like it could be somebody who you're not even worried about. So PvP, no. Increase accuracy. Well, this helps her, like, again, fight against the Tsubaki, but we already just said in PvP she's not gonna be that great. But in PvE, for some reason, if you're just missing all your shots on a boss, then there you go. And then her sub free skill increases allies attack, which is really useful because for those, again, PvE situations, she's already giving you a 24% increase in damage and then another 9%. So that's 33% right there off the back, almost 34%. So really good for PvE. Irie, man, I've never used her before, so this is gonna be interesting. But her EX skill deals 265% of attack to enemies in a circle, decreases movement speed. It costs 5, so this is really expensive for a okay AoE damage, and the decrease in movement speed in PvE, I could see that maybe like for those enemies that are just running at you, right? Like, or before you get crowded. But in PvP, I don't see this being useful at all. So I'd put this unit as a possible PvE unit. If it's like one of the only 2 stars that you have, go ahead, upgrade her. Like, if that's what you need, then that's your AoE damage. But like, I saw some people using her in PvP, but I just didn't see it. But yeah, let's see. Basic skill decreases attack speed by 18% for 1 enemy every 25 seconds. Now in PvP, this could really mess somebody up because this is lowering the amount of damage they can do, which is lowering the times they could just kill one of your units and giving you a chance to do more DPS than them. In PvE, I don't see this being super useful, like other than maybe like a raid boss. Like maybe you could like dodge out like some of his attacks a little bit more, like if you just get a better instance of damage, right? So that's where I can see. But in PvP, like I could see this really messing somebody up because they're just not able to get their damage out as often. Let's see, it's hand skill, increased attack. I mean, this just helps her out to just do a little bit more damage. Her sub skill, increase ally attack speed. Now this is where she can help you guys do more damage, because that 9% is a 10% increase in your attack speed, so you're attacking more often. So that's technically like extra damage, right? So for, again, like PvP, this could help. This really could help. She's a special unit, so she's, you know, sitting in the she's off field for you guys, so she is doing some AoE, lowering their attack speed, increasing yours. So this could be very useful for those if you just don't have any other unit. But for me, I just didn't see as much usefulness. But if you have her, hey, try it out. Let me know how it works for you. Suzumi, I don't use her that much, but I have a bunch of copies. I've had a bunch of copies on her. But this is a decent damage for a cost 4, deals 389% of attacks to all enemies in a circle area. Doesn't do any extra effects, but it's just decent like AoE damage, especially if you don't have a good AoE striker, and she's explosive type, so that's really good for you. Her basic skill does 233% to 1 enemy. This one's like literally okay because she's like a 1-star, so nothing too crazy, but it can help you clear out a boss if you need to. Enhanced skill, increase evasion, so this can help her take less damage. That's basically all it's going to be. And then this, inflict 27% of attack as additional enemies inflicted with crowd control. So you could pair her with Kayako, and whenever they get feared, she does extra damage to them. So you can have them feared and then pop off the EX1 and clear out a whole area. That's where you can do it. Or you can pair it with Zahari, who does the stuns. So just, you know, pair her with a crowd control unit, and there you go. Now she's doing neutral damage to all warfare, so you can pretty much put her anywhere and she won't get an increase and she won't get a decrease. So yeah, just put her wherever you can fit her. Chimico, I do not use her, but she is really good for who is that? Suka, because she puts down her own cover. So if you're using tanks, this is somebody I want to use when the meta changes for the tanks, because if you're having a heavy defense tank, you can summon a cover, or if you want to move your unit somewhere, you can summon a cover, and this increases their defense as well when you're within the circle. So I do see this as being useful potentially, just not right now, but potentially do see it being amazing. I just have to run something with it and try to use it maybe next season. I control some people with just like super tanky team, something like that, because she does give an ally an extra shield as well, which is very useful every 16 seconds. So if you up her stats, I mean, you're getting an annoying shield with her. It increases her healing percentage, which just helps make her shield better, and increases defense. So you can get a really, really tanky team with her. So I'm gonna be using her next season. If the meta changes, I can use like Hoshino and Suka or Haruka, and I see I slept using this. I don't even think it's Suka. I think it's Haruna who's behind cover and using. I don't know. I have to look. It might be Suka, but anyways, this helps those high defense tanks is what I was meaning to say. Anyways, Shuri, I've never used her ever, but you know she probably has usefulness, right? EX skill, move 4 enemies in a circle to a designated location, then deals 58% of attack as poison damage Okay, so this is basically like Saya, but like a 1-star version of it. But it actually moves the enemies into that circle. So if you do have her and she's a special unit. So if you do have her and the enemy is weak to explosive damage, I could see this being crazy because if you drop it down in the middle of a bunch of enemies, they just walk into it and just start dying. And in PvP, like maybe when the meta changes and there's enemies that are weak to explosive, I mean, you could just pretty much mess somebody up. And I could see this as being trolling because like if you have to move a character, then they can't reload and they can't do damage because they're moving to that location. So I'd have to try this out in PvP and see, but I believe because she's a 1-star and people have to invest into her, they're not really going to use it as much. Now this right here is very useful. Decreases attack speed by 18% on the enemy with the highest attack. So if you know somebody like a Haruna, if you know somebody who has a high attack, you can decrease their attack speed and decrease the amount of damage they're doing to mess you up. So this is very useful. If you have her and you love her and she's your waifu, hey man, you're probably trolling the mess out of somebody because you're decreasing the mess out of their attack. And they're doing this every 16 seconds and it lasts 20 seconds. So this is very troll. Enhanced skill increases her attack, so she's doing even more damage for that EX skill. And her sub skill increases her allies' HP just to help keep you guys alive. I don't see any problem with that. If you have her and you brought her and you bring her all the way to a 5-star, I could see this messing somebody up, honestly. So yeah, just use her where you can. Kotari, I've never used her, but I can level her up to a 2-star. But her EX skill moves 4 allies to a designated location, then casts 175% of healing as a barrier. So this is really useful because it can pretty much shield your team. It's separate from healing, but it's going to be a nice shield. It's going to block damage. It costs 4, which is not too much. It's basically just like a shielding puka. So I'll have to use her to see how great that is in PvP or PvE. I mean, her usefulness will be like okay in both, right? Because like it's just like another healer. But right now people are just kind of sticking to just like one healer and then one damaging support. So do you really want to give up like a heal for, you know, something like that? So it just really depends on what you're like looking for. But her skill does do AoE damage, fan-shaped area. 269% of attack is damage to enemies within that area every 35 seconds. So not too bad. Enhanced skill gives her better crit damage. Hey, that's more damage, so it helps out, especially if you're giving your team extra crit with some of the other striker supports. And then sub skill increases crit damage after defeating an enemy. So when she's defeating an enemy with a basic skill, she can do a little bit more damage as a striker. So if you love her and she's your waifu, then she's basically just, you know, kind of berserking out there. If she kills an enemy, she's increasing her crit damage. Crit. I could see somebody being very troll with this and just kind of like ruining somebody's life by just ending enemies. And she has like no disadvantages in any type warfare. She's neutral, so you can pretty much use her anywhere. And that's pretty much it for the supports. But again, all the supports are useful. It just depends on the area that you use them in. They're all great units. You just have to really, again, just look at what you're fighting against and just look at the situation and you can pretty much do it. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys. So you lucky gamers, have a good one. Lucky Lux out.